Hello and welcome, everybody. So, my name is Steven, and this is the show where we bring together experts to break down some of the most fundamental topics in HR. This time around, we have a very interesting topic. It's incentive pay, and we have three very interesting guests, which I will introduce now. We've got with us Nicole Little, who is a senior HR business partner at Homespire Remodeling Group. We've got Heather Anderson, who is an HR manager at SP Plus, and we have Stephen Farber, talent retention Sherpa at Hero Culture. So glad to have each of you with us, and excited to jump into this conversation with you. So let's talk about incentive pay, and I want to just start out by getting the definition out there, just in case anybody is a little bit confused about what this is. And Nicole, I'd love it if you can just jump in and just tell us what is incentive pay. What are we going to be talking about today?
Right. So incentive pay is when you're going to reward your employees for specific tasks that they're completing, right? So I think if you go back to warehousing, it's the most forward thinking of incentive pay. So almost like piece rate, your employees are going to pick so many product in a set amount of time frame, right? So 50 items in an hour. And if they meet that goal, you're going to reward them with some sort of pay increase. So maybe it's $1 per piece that they pick, maybe it's 50 cents. Maybe it's a goal for the week, right? So it could look a little bit different depending on how you want to incentivize that individual.
Yeah, awesome. So Nicole, you bring up this really interesting structure, which is different than just like a salary or an hourly employee, right? Those are kind of some
Mhm.
competing models. It sounds like. Stephen and then Heather, I'd love to hear your thoughts on like why not just do hourly or salaried and just kind of put all the money into just those things, you know? And to add on to this, I know there are salaried employees who also get incentive pay. So why not just put it all into that simple system and pay them that way? What's the point of kind of having incentives on top or instead of? Stephen, do you have some thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's in the definition of the word, right? Motivation, encouragement. Really, especially when you have a job like a warehouse picking job. I long ago, I used to work for a company that, thank goodness, we had a warehouse team and they would load our trucks, and it was amazing. And those people have a really hard job. So anything you could do to incentivize them, like, hey, if you meet this rate, we'll pay you this much more. That is, I think it's critical to have that kind of motivation when you just have that tough of a job. And then, of course, the other place you see it a lot in is sales, where if you're trying to meet certain goals, it seems smart to pay someone more based on performance. Whereas if you were just to put it all in salary, I'm not saying this is the case because I think salary feels much more comfortable to someone like me. But if you're looking at performance, the people who perform, I guess it would be fair to pay them more, and incentives, stock options, things like that are good places to start with that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
go.
absolutely. And with that, regardless of what industry you're in, there are always tasks or assignments, or even including attendance, where you want to reward the people that show up to work. Um, Especially in this day and age where it's such an interesting job market where you have people that just suddenly decide I'm not going to work today, and they just don't show up. The 2 week notice thing is just beep, out the door. So when you've got a good group of people that do a good job, they come in. Maybe you're seeing the potential to increase their performance. Let's reward them for that. Let's identify whatever those key metrics are that you're looking to improve upon and say, okay, if you perform X, then we're going to reward you because you're putting in that time and that effort, and we really appreciate that. It's a great way for employee retention, not just as like, I mean, yeah, you're coming to work, you're getting paid, whoop de doo, but hey, you know what? You had a stellar attendance rate this quarter, or you had 0 customer complaints. You had a phenomenal on-time delivery percentage with your customers. You went above and beyond, so we're going to reward you for that. It's just another way of a company being able to express their appreciation and rewarding good hard work, and it helps with that employee retention.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Bringing up some great points here. I think we've covered. So incentive pay can help motivate specific actions, and it also is a form of, it sounds like, appreciation that will kind of bleed into retention there. I want to turn this over to Nicole and Stephen and ask you kind of slightly two different questions here. And Nicole, with your experience in where, I want to get down to the fact of, does it work, right? Like in theory, we're saying, okay, it's gonna help motivate and it's gonna help retain. Nicole, I want to hear your thoughts on, have these programs worked in motivating attendance and stuff? And then Stephen, I want to hear your thoughts as well. Do you think incentive pay can increase retention? What your thoughts are on that? So go ahead, Nicole. Let's kick it over to you.
So for attendance incentive, I've done it a couple of different ways where they've been rewarded for perfect attendance with additional time off, right? So, and then, yes, I mean, incentive pay works because it's really a cool environment, especially when you're doing like a process path where you're picking or packing. And what we would do is have leaderboards. So everybody, it was a competition. Like, who doesn't want to compete? Who doesn't want to be number one? Who doesn't want to get like the most money? So yeah, I mean, my employees loved it. It pushed them. Those, it was an extra $200 a week or more in their paychecks. So it was phenomenal. And I've seen the downside of when we took it away or changed it, productivity slowed down. There wasn't that competition. They didn't have that buy-in for the company as a whole, right? Because you're rewarding them. They feel like they're part of the team. They see the end result. Plus they're getting, financial incentive for it. They wanted to come to work. They didn't want to miss. It was a really great program. So my number one performers for productivity did have the perfect attendance, did come in for overtime, always wanted to help out. They felt like they were truly part of the team, and it showed.
Yeah. Love those examples. Obviously worked really well in your case, Nicole. Stephen, let's kick it over to you. What do you think? Does it make people feel appreciated, and does that help with retention? What are your thoughts on that piece?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a decent amount of it has to do with kind of how you implement that, how you make that happen, because there are certain people that may not be competitive, but no one's going to turn their face at a cash bonus or an incentive. So to that degree, giving some sort of monetary incentive for performance absolutely is going to engage people. And I was talking with Kayla the Machine the other day, my wife, and she was telling me that she was doing a lot of research on employee engagement, and something I kind of missed was that employee engagement's more than just being plugged in. It's like believing in the company, the loyalty, everything is important there. So when you're getting paid more from your company for doing a good job, it's 100% going to retain you, because if you're engaged, you're not going to be on Indeed.com or LinkedIn or picking up the phone when you get a job offer. You're going to be like, no, I believe in this vision. This is where I want to be. And they pay me when I do a good job. It's when you don't get extra for going above and beyond that the problems can start. Even for those people who don't voice or are outwardly competitive, everybody wants to be rewarded for what they consider to be superior work. So yeah, to Nicole's point, she's right on the money. And then, yes, I think it's 100% it's a tool for retention, a big one. Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And can I just add one more thing? I know we talked about, sales and hourly employees, but you can utilize this with your salary team members as well, right? Like, I have my yearly goals and I get rewarded based on if I'm achieving those or not, and how fast do I achieve them. Like, I have my calendar and my deadlines and my goals, but am I completing those ahead of time? Am I slacking? So, you can utilize it across all avenues of employees that you have.
Yeah.
Can I just say something to that too? I just want to agree, because so often I don't see that in like service type roles. I just see salary, and it's no wonder why they turn over so much, Whereas you have the sales team, people who are hard to kick out if they're doing a bad job. It's because that's not there. And I think something like a KPI should be in place for like, hey, here's a big cash bonus at the end of the year or whatever, or stock options. A lot of people like those these days, regardless of job or industry. So yeah, that was just a really good point.
Yeah. Well, I think we've talked them up really well. People watching are probably like, okay, everyone gets $100 every day if they do X, Y, Z, right? Let's talk about the drawbacks, because I know there can be some real issues that pop up when rolling out one of these programs. And Heather, I want to give you the first word on this, and then turn it over to whoever else has thoughts. But I just want to quickly present to an example that I kind of thought of as I was reaching this, which is there was an incentive pay program at Wells Fargo, and you might see where this is going, but they were incentivized to sign up customers for additional cards without their knowledge. Essentially, they were being paid for the amount of signups they got, and that led to a culture where people would kind of do some fraudulent things and resulted in billion-dollar lawsuits and such. So, all because of an incentive pay program. So, I want to kick it over to you, Heather, to kind of address any other downsides that you see.
Biggest one that you're going to have, you need to be transparent. Anytime you're involving any kind of incentive pay, if you are not 100% transparent in what the goals are, what the payout is, what they've received, you're going to have problems. And you need to make sure that when you're building these incentive programs, that you are promoting competitiveness and not creating conflicts. Because if you have multiple like divisions, like different aspects of your business, and their one business group A's goals are this, and then group B's goals are this, and if their goals clash, you're going to have some issues out there. You're not building a good environment. You're creating conflict on your floor, and that can cause some problems. It can cause some discontentment, where I've seen people come in and they're like, well, why do I even try? Because I'm not going to be able to do it, because I'm completely dependent on these guys to do this so that I can meet this metric, but they're wanting to do XYZ, so this metric's being thrown out the window. And as you're looking at those metrics, what weight do you have for each of those metrics? Like, how are you grading it? Is it very straightforward, like a piece rate? Or do you use percentages? Do you look at overall service numbers? You just have to have it very fleshed out, and being able to just bring people in, whether you do it publicly or privately, and be able to show them, okay, so here's where you landed. So here's what your goals were. Here's what your metrics were. Here's what your potential was that you could make. And here's where you fell into it, and be able to pull actual numbers to show them what they're doing. Because that way it helps get them in that understanding of, oh, okay, so I need to increase my performance here so that I can get higher. Because with giving them this is an awesome opportunity for them to earn more money and to control their paychecks outside of OT, or utilize their OT to the full extent that they can. So it's a brilliant opportunity. But you got to make sure you're keeping those motivators. Be very clear on what the disqualifiers are for these incentives, if you have any. And especially if they just get disqualified early on, you're going to want to watch their performance. If they're like, oh, well, I'm already disqualified, I don't care, then is their performance going to tank the entire rest of it? And how does that affect the rest of your floor, or just the team as a whole? Is it discouraging? So you want to be able to look at all those things and just kind of keep those in mind. And sometimes as you're building this, it may be trial and error, and that's okay. It's good to get the feedback. It's good to see how people react. And is it fair? And also make sure that you're looking at your financials, and don't overpromise things. You don't want to get your company in trouble. But, like, just look at it from all aspects of it. And if you're not sure, bring somebody else in, get another set of eyes on it, and say, hey, what do you think? Does this look good? Do you think it's going to be, get the buy-in of a whole bunch of different aspects of it, because that's going to be important too. You don't want to set this whole thing up, get everybody excited about it, and then fail the first week it happens. So you definitely want to just double check all your boxes.
Yeah. Well, I think you covered that really well. I mean, you talked about it can be too expensive, so make sure you don't overpromise. There can be some unfairness feelings there. The competitiveness can destroy teams. You really covered a lot there. Nicole or Steven, do you have any thoughts you want to add into this around kind of the warning signs?
I think one of the biggest thing is you need to make it attainable too, right? I mean, because like what Heather said, you can trial and error, but you don't want to set their goal at 75% if on week one when okay, there's going to be training, we need to trial this out. You have to let them have a ramp up period. Help them and train them to get to where you want them to be, and communicate. Just be very open. Like, this is where you're at right now. This is where we want to be. And this is how we're going to help get you there. So you can be a top performer and you can meet those goals and you can have that financial reward.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Evan.
Just to kind of tack that on real quick. Sorry, Steve. That's probably one of the biggest things, especially with COVID. Take into consideration things that may affect that. Are you willing to grant any considerations in, hey, I know this is your metric and on a normal, we're able to obtain this, no problem. But because of XYZ or something completely outside of, that team's control, are you going to give them any leeway with that?
Steven, did you have a thought you wanted to share as well?
Yeah, really, Heather kind of said more or less what I was going to say is make it realistic. And because I was a sales manager for a while for a long time, and I actually saw this happen when COVID was hitting really hard. Is we had leadership, and I think the point I want to make here before I hopefully not tangentialize is the fact that departments got to communicate and they have to be in agreement. And as somebody who's beginning HR or accidental HR, you may not have control over this, but what can happen is you have, a sales leadership pushing. We got to sell this specific incentive for this bonus or this thing. And then, we don't have that product. It's not here because of COVID or something like that. And whenever you as a sales rep or this could be anybody raises that flag and like, hey, how do I do this? A lot of times in my experience, management said, make it happen, or do you not want this? And it becomes this personal attack. And in reality, it's like, how am I supposed to participate in an incentive that I don't even have the physical supplies here for? So Steven, kind of to your point, you start to see people cutting corners, and for sales reps that are just trying to survive, and this isn't just sales reps, but anybody who's incentivized and stuff like that will start doing whatever it takes sometimes. And that's where you have immoral things happening. You have things that can get the company in trouble. And it's because the company can push too hard, because it just becomes this emotionally driven thing. And then you have talent turning over and it becomes this whole horrible mess. And in reality, if we would all just stop and slow down and say, okay, we can't quite incentivize the way we could on a good day. That's just the way it is. But I think people don't want a reality check. They just want it to be business as usual. And you just can't do that because it's going to cause issues.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I think now everybody listening is like, there's no way I'm doing an incentive program. We've really flipped the dial here. So hopefully that gives people, though, a good, balance of the scales. They know the risks involved, but also the potential benefits. Steven and a few of other of you have brought this up now, but I want to kind of dive into the cross-departmentalness of an incentive pay program, because from what I'm hearing from you, this is really taking a lot of thought. You're going into specific teams. You need to look at financial models of the business. Like, this is a very complicated process. So kind of the question that I have is, what really is HR's role in putting a program together? Or is it more just they are the ones executing on the program and following up with people? I want to turn this over to Nicole first, if you have any thoughts, and then open it up to anyone else.
Yeah, so my role as HR with previous incentive pay programs is checking operations, right? Being that partner. So gathering weekly and just reviewing everybody's productivity and just ensuring that, you're not writing somebody up for something that's out of their control, right? So if their goal was to get to 50 this week and they only got to 25. Well, why did they get to that, right? Is it a training issue? Did we not have the product? Is that why they couldn't achieve their goal? So just making sure that everybody is being fair and consistent. I hate when people say like HR is the police, but in this situation where it's tied to money, we first of all need to make sure that nothing fraudulent is happening, that the employees themselves aren't cheating, doing something in, maybe their computer system to change their averages or their piece rate or whatever they're doing, and then making sure that the operational side of it is holding people accountable consistently across the board. So really just kind of like that check and balance for the operation team, and just ensuring that, okay, this person met their goal and we're going to pay it out, and just being that communicator and asking those questions.
Yeah, great points there. Heather or Steven, any thoughts? What you see HR's role in all this?
So mine's a little bit different. I'm part of a team with looking at the incentives. So even though I have my own portion, every quarter the management team will get together and we'll discuss it. We'll say, okay, so this quarter's incentive metrics, what are we needing to achieve? And we always usually have one or two that we could change that's tied to specific performance or requirements due that quarter or that upcoming quarter. Like a big one is every year we all have to do those fun sexual harassment trainings and those required. And so we add that to our incentives, like, hey, if you get this done early and we don't have to like bug you about it a million times, you get it. Like you get 100% on that portion. And so we look at those different aspects. So that's part of the team aspect. But even still, as an individual, I'm there to make sure that I'm the advocate, because if there is a fluke situation, like Nicole was saying, or something that's totally outside of their control, you want to be the person to go in and advocate for it. Say, yes, we needed to do progressive disciplinary, but do you really want this to be a disqualifier for the incentive? Like, it's a one-time thing. It was a situation that was just kind of spelunky and it wasn't anything anybody could have anticipated. Do we want to use it as just a learning tool and kind of advocate for them? And then just ensure that the process is fair. The classic term, what you do for one, you do for all. Are we putting each person, regardless of status, regardless of pay rate, whatever it is, are we putting them in, going through the exact same process, looking at the metrics the same way, evaluating the numbers the same way, and coming out with a conclusion the exact same way, regardless of what that figure is? Just in the event that, it comes up and people are like, well, they're not being fair, we can be like, no, it's the same process for everybody. We put everybody in the same way. Everyone's treated equally and fairly. And it's just to ensure, and sometimes it's just good to audit that, especially if you're using like an Excel sheet. Formulas can change. Excel's a tricky thing. You can hit a wrong button one time and all of a sudden the whole thing's changed, and then you got to go in and find it. So it doesn't ever hurt to just remind them, hey, let's just double check to make sure it's working correctly and we're doing it the right way.
Yeah. Heather, I'm picturing you pressing a key in Excel and suddenly someone like is getting $1 million.
That would be so awesome. Be like, so my account number is.
Yeah, exactly. So good auditing. I love that you talked about the team. You actually have a team that meets, and you're a player on that team with senior management, and you get to kind of like you guys are deciding together the metrics. Anyway, I love what you described there. Steven, do you have anything you want to add on HR's role?
To Heather's point, it's probably case by case. It's very different depending on the size of the business and especially what role you're covering. And Nicole, when you were talking about kind of being able to root out some potential issues or problems or opportunities for development, that kind of struck a chord with me because we were doing some conflict training for a client the other day. And something that we always look at is, how can we turn conflict into creativity moments or productive moments? And, one thing that really I remember like specifically, I had a manager, I missed an incentive a long time ago when I was in just a wee sales role, a wee Steven lad back then. And I remember just feeling terrible and bad and I'm going to get in trouble. And the way that he approached it completely changed everything. He was like, hey, I noticed you didn't hit, 25. You needed to hit 50. He's like, let's figure out how to help you get here. So, because I don't want you to miss these anymore. I want you to have these. And it turned it around from I'm going to be in trouble or I'm going to be written up to oh, hey, let me just find the tools so you can get to this point.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the employee could respond negatively, and maybe there is a problem, maybe they're slacking or just purposely doing it. But I'd like to think that 90% of the time, it's either like a lack of training or just a lack of direction or just overwhelm. And, being their advocate, I think, Heather, I think you mentioned that being their friend is going to not only, again, build engagement, company loyalty. It all leads to retention, then it all leads to the bottom line. Like, it's how you approach that person with that matters. And I think that is just key. Any opportunity where you have this conflict about to appear, especially when you miss an incentive, just like, hey, I don't know why you missed this, but let's make sure you don't miss any more. Like that, I think that is, I think that was done for me, and it was awesome. I still remember it. And that was, goodness gracious, I don't want to talk about how long ago. So.
Well, it sounds like a great way to kind of smooth over and take what could be a downward spiral and make something positive out of it. So I think that's great. Yeah, HR is an advocate. Let's move on to another section here. I think this is one of our last ones around the type of incentive. And this is a conversation on incentive pay, but incentives are not always linked to, this money's going to your bank account or this or this. So I would love to hear from each of you. What are some incentives that you think, outside of just the money, that can be effective and make a difference, motivate people? Stephen, I actually want to throw this one back to you first, and then maybe we can go to Nicole and then finish off with Heather.
Yeah. Everybody's probably thinking of this, and I'm going to steal it first. I'm sorry, but gift cards, you can't go wrong. Especially if you have a program like Tango, or there's a bunch of others out there where you give somebody not only like, hey, here's $50, also you get to choose how to spend it. And you give all these options. You're giving this person so much power in that incentive, and the more choice you can give them is fantastic. And there's even services out there that will pay you for gift cards in some instances. So if they want to turn it to cash, they can figure out how. But that is just the easiest thing. I think companies can easily turn that into write-offs. There's various ways it can kind of work. I think it might actually be classified as pay. I can't remember. But that one is just easy to go to. So that and paid days off, who doesn't love that? That is, I think those are huge. So I'll quit taking there.
Yeah, love that. Over to you, Nicole. What do you think?
All right, so I got two different ones, similar to Steve's. Food, right? So if a team meets their goal, the department meets their goal, feed them. People love not to have to bring breakfast or lunch to work. Hopefully we're in summer, so, an ice cream, a coffee, whatever the case is, and swag. I mean, who doesn't like you don't want to get up in the morning and think about what you have to put on. Like, give them shirts, give them hats, let them promote your company. Like, that's awesome. They're going to, if they get stopped out at the grocery store because they have your logo on or, a cool shirt, they're going to say, oh my gosh, yeah, look what my company did for me. I'm at this cool goal. I have all this free stuff they're giving me. Like, great advertising, great way to promote your company, recruit new hires. So swag and food, all about it.
Me too, man.
110%, yes. Swag is my love language. And with that too, especially because like our company, we have uniforms, water bottles, pens, sunscreen, lip balm, brand awareness, cough, is awesome. The gift cards are awesome. Like, I know Motivosity does a thank you card, and just randomly they'll be like, hey, everyone, lunch on us. So not only do you get food, but it's also a gift card, time together. We do raffles. Like, we have an employee engagement line item on our budget. So it's go get some fun things that you don't, it doesn't have to be swag. And sometimes you can save those bigger things for company parties if you want to, but, look at your budget and then see what does your company offer. Are there cool things that could help them in the office, or perhaps even just things that you think overall people would, based on what your employees do or what kind of industry you're in. Maybe they really like stuff. And you can say, hey, if you meet XYZ, you get to be put in the raffle. So we had an employee engagement section where we had everybody in the raffle. And then there's also times where it's like, if you meet XYZ, your name goes in the raffle. And then if you don't win a prize, your name goes in a second raffle. And they got dinner on company dime. The GM got to take them out and spend time with them and learn about them. And they got to go to dinner wherever they wanted to. So that was kind of cool, within reason. You can't go to Fleming's or Chris Ruth's, but something nice to spend time with and just really engage in that. And it was fun. It was exciting, and people actually talked about it quite a bit. So as much as monetary is, I would much rather you come up and give me a mug that has my company logo on it with a straw that I can just sit here and sip, while I'm working. That's worth so much more to me, because it's like, oh, I get free stuff. Everybody loves free stuff. So yeah, support everything that was just said. And you can even
Yeah.
just make it a little bit funner with raffles or, spin the wheel things, and just make it fun.
We love spinning wheels. That's an exciting one. I love, Heather, too, that you brought up an experiential kind of a thing, like going out to dinner with somebody. I've heard of like vacations, like whole vacations and stuff. There's definitely some crazy stuff that bigger companies can offer. But yeah,
There's a really cool company.
The Don't Day?
Don't it? Yes,
Don't Day.
Don't Day.
Yeah, I love them.
That's a really fun benefit, where it's kind of like a 401k, but it's to save up for a vacation. You could, if you have that benefit, you could very easily say, hey, as an added incentive, we're going to add an additional X amount towards your family's vacation.
That's
I
very
can't
cool.
count the number of people that are like, I never thought I'd be able to go do this, and their company helps them take their family to Disney World or
That's
to the
huge.
Caribbean,
Yeah.
or like, how fun is that? And I know not everybody can, but if you can, you should look at it, because it's awesome. #life goals.
Yeah.
So it's just, look at what benefits your company does offer, and are you able to help even more? Like, you're investing in your employees, and it helps, even if it's just qualified as an incentive. You're investing in them, is what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. It was awesome, guys. I think that kind of concludes the major topics we're going to discuss. I learned a lot. We always like to close, though, give everyone one last opportunity to share, in a sentence or two, your final pieces of advice for the people who are listening and are thinking, we need to step up our game at my company, or I want to go start something and be proactive because we're not doing it. But what final piece of advice would you have for somebody? Let's turn this over to Nicole first, and then we'll go to Steven, and we'll finish with Heather.
Yeah, I think if you're looking at starting an incentive pay program or some sort of incentive program, get your leadership, get your department managers. The more people you have that buy into it, and you can show that this is going to improve retention, it's going to reduce your turnover, you're going to be able to get more employee referrals for more employees to join your company. Huge win, right? So whatever you can do to tie it back to the company. And keep in mind, incentive pay doesn't have to be, $100 gift cards constantly. It could be something super simple. A small treat, some, company branded merchandise, anything like that. So you can always start small and build from there, but just make sure that you can get everybody on board and a lot of buy-in.
Yeah. Great. Steven?
Everything Nicole said, and then just double check your implementation, make sure it's realistic. And I'm a planner. I have like plan A, plan B, and there's 24 other letters in the alphabet, right? So make sure that you have just contingencies for those things, so that you don't have this corner cutting and immoral things that begin happening. And really what usually happens in those situations is people just leave because they feel like they're being treated unfairly. So definitely make it competitive, make it to where it's tough to get to, but rewarding and realistic to get to. And that looks different for everybody. That would be my advice. Just take a really good hard look at what you're going to do, and then take another one before you implement it.
Yeah, completely agree. Checks and balances. Make sure you've got the checks and balances. Make sure you're being fair to everybody, and make sure that you're being transparent. Transparency just breeds a ground of honesty. It breeds trust, And you want your employees to trust the process, to trust that, hey, I'm going to work my butt off and I'm appreciated and they're going to compensate me for it one way or another. So
Yeah.
just make sure that you're constantly keeping those checks and balances to make sure that it's being fair.
Yeah, great. Well, great advice from everyone here. We always show this slide at the end if you want to learn a little bit more about incentive pay. And we have, I want to say, 30 or 40 articles on paying employees and some employee motivation and things. Check out our encyclopedia article on it, and the other articles in the encyclopedia, and meet these panelists. We always love talking to them. We always learn something new, and connect with them on LinkedIn. I know they're just good people and good to be connected with and talk to. So thank you three so much, and thank you everyone who's watching. We really appreciate having these, and hope everybody has a great rest of their day. So, bye everybody.
Bye.